Okay, so let's have a look into tutorial 3, which is about aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Okay, so it's quite similar to what you had learned in micro, but in micro, you look into the individual demand, individual supply, or market demand or market supply. But when it comes to macro, okay, we look into aggregate. The word aggregate means total. So that means I look into the total demand in the economy as well as the total supply in the economy. So therefore, for this tutorial here, is quite direct. We just need to know the graph and also the factors, okay? Like for example, the factors that will shift aggregate demand and the factors that will shift aggregate supply. Okay, so let's have a look into aggregate demand first. So as I mentioned, aggregate demand means total demand. So therefore, the meaning here, it says that total level of the spending on goods and services in the economy. Yeah, and also one thing that I mentioned before. Okay, when I say aggregate demand, I refer to the 4 components. So the first thing I want you to remember is when I refer to aggregate demand, I'm referring to all the spending in the economy, which comprises of consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. So when I say net exports means exports minus imports. Okay, so therefore, when I say aggregate demand, I'm referring to all the spending, and that comprise of these 4 components over here, which are C, I, G, and X. Okay. So now let's have a look into the price factor and the non-price factors. Okay. So aggregate demand is just like a demand curve, which is downward sloping. But remember, now we look into the total demand in the economy itself, no longer on the individual perspective, no longer in the market perspective, but in the whole economy. Okay, so now let's have a look into the graph over here. When you look into price factor, you have price level on your left axis and your real GDP, okay, on the y-axis. Okay, and it's a downward sloping curve, like you can see here. This is your aggregate demand curve. Okay, so therefore, price factor means that today, right, the rise or the fall in the real GDP demanded is mainly due to the price level itself. Now remember, here we look into price level, not price, because now we look into macro. Because when you look into prices means only prices of that item, right? That's micro. But now we look into the prices of a basket of goods and services. So therefore, we use a price level, it's like index. Okay. So therefore, remember when you label your y-axis there, okay, make sure that you put it as price level. Okay. So therefore, when you talk about price factor, that means today the price level affects the real GDP, the real GDP demanded. So for example, let's say when the price level is high, okay, quantity of real GDP demanded will fall. Okay, so you can see this kind of relationship. Okay, so like for example, at first it's at the price level of 115 and at the quantity of 12. But what happened is when the price level goes up, okay, when the price levels goes up to, let's say, 120, okay, when the price level goes up, what happened is you can see there's a fall in the quantity of real GDP demanded. Okay, so vice versa. Okay, so this is the relationship over here. Now, how do you explain this kind of inverse relationship? Okay, we are going to use 2 effects to explain this relationship. One is wealth effect and another one is substitution effect. Okay, wealth effect means that let's say for example, later I have put into sentences in your answers here. When you talk about wealth effect, real wealth effect, that means that for example, let's say when the price level becomes higher, okay, when things become more expensive, what happens is it reduces your purchasing power. Okay, so with the same amount of money that you have, right, you are not able to buy the same amount of goods and services as compared to before. Okay, so when there's a rise in price level, what happens is it reduces the purchasing power. Okay, and therefore causing a fall in real wealth. Okay, so therefore what happens is you will start to save more, okay, rather than spending, and that result in a fall in the quantity of real GDP demanded. So that's the meaning of the wealth effect. Okay, I have put up into the sentences later, which we are going to refer to it. Okay, so later I will come to that, but at least now you understand what is real wealth effect. Okay, that means when price level becomes higher, your purchasing power has reduced. Okay, so therefore, you spend less. Okay, now, the next one is substitution effects. So we talk about substitution effects, right? You have intertemporal and international substitution effects. So let's have a look into intertemporal substitution effect first. When I say intertemporal, okay, I want you to remember about interest rate. Okay, intertemporal substitution effect means something to do with interest rate. So, like for example, when let's say, okay, so you can understand theoretically first. Okay, let's understand from a theoretical perspective first. Okay, so when we talk about intertemporal substitution effects, right? It means that, for example, let's say the price level becomes higher. So that means what? That means you need to use more money to buy goods and services. Okay, you need to spend more because things become more expensive when there's a rise in the price level. Okay, so when we need to demand more of the money, right? Okay, when we need to spend, when we need to use more money and to spend more money to purchase goods and services, right? What happened is the central bank or the government will increase the interest rate because they don't want people to spend too much. Okay, so therefore, what happened is when price level is high, people will spend more. So therefore, interest rate will be high as well. Now, when interest rate is high, that means cost of borrowing is high. That means you as an individual, you will not simply spend, okay? And businesses will not simply investing as well because the interest rate is high. That means cost of borrowing is high, okay? So therefore, there will cause a fall in the quantity of real GDP demanded. Okay, so that's how you can understand from intertemporal effects. Okay, now you can understand from a graph. The graph is something that you will learn later on in the chapters at the back. It means that how is that a rise in the price level result in higher interest rates like this. Okay, so you can look into a graph called money market. Okay, so example, we use an example to show that we can understand it from a money market. Okay, you will learn this graph at the chapters at the back. Okay, so you have y-axis and x-axis, you have origin, and then this is your interest rate. Okay, and this is your quantity of real money. Okay, what happened is this is your money supply curve. Okay, and this is your money demand. So you will learn more about the graph for this one when it comes to the chapters later on. Okay, so I just want to show you how is that resulting in higher interest rate. Okay, so I show it to you graphically. Now, at first, you are at this point, green color point. Okay, at this interest rate. Okay, and at this quantity of money. Okay, so we call it as point A. Now, what happened is, let's say now, price level becomes higher. Okay, price level becomes higher. So what happened is, people will need to use more money to buy goods and services, right? So money demand will shift rightwards. Okay, money demand will shift rightwards. Okay, so money demand shift rightwards. Okay, so therefore from point A, it moved to here, point B. So what happened is money demand more than money supply, right? Money demand is this blue color dots. Money supply is still the green color dots. So there's a shortage of monies, okay, that cause the equilibrium to move up to point C here. Okay, so it ends up at a higher interest rate. So do you realize one thing over here? From the initial point A, okay, at this interest rate, at this quantity of money, after the increase in the money demand, at the end, it will result at the new equilibrium at point C. At point C over here, you can see the interest rate is now higher. So that's what I'm trying to show you here. when the price level is high, the money demand will increase, that result in higher interest rate. So now you can see that the relationship is being formed over here. So when I say interest rate becomes higher, that means the cost of borrowing becomes high. Okay, cost of borrowing becomes high. That means that consumption will reduce, investment will reduce. Okay, so that means that people will spend less and people invest less. Okay, that will cause the quantity of real GDP demanded going down. Okay, so that's what I call as intertemporal effects. Now you can see how I put into sentences if you want to explain all this. Okay, so if you scroll down here, later on I will come to here again. Now you see how I explain intertemporal substitution effect. I said that higher price level indicates more transactional demand for money. Okay, so higher price level means that you will need to use more money to buy goods and services, which will lead to an increase in the interest rate. Okay, so what happened is the interest rate increases because of the fall in the real value of money. Okay, the real value of money has fallen down, so you need to use more money to buy goods and services. So at the end, this increases cost of borrowing, that reduce the quantity of real GDP demanded. Okay, so this is how you put into sentences. Okay, the next one is called international substitution effects. So when you look into international substitution effects, right, that means you compare between local goods and the foreign products. So like, for example, when the price level becomes higher, okay, that means that local items become more expensive. Okay, so when the local items become more expensive, right, what happened is local people will not want to buy the products. At the same time, foreigners will not buy as well. So therefore, that reduces the quantity of real GDP demanded. Okay, so again, you can see how I put into sentences here. In terms of international substitution effect, I said a higher price level, a higher price level makes the local goods more expensive and unattractive to the locals and foreigners. So locals will replace the local goods with the foreign products, okay, reducing the quantity of real GDP demanded. Okay, so therefore you can see that these three effects over here are mainly caused by the price factor itself. Okay, because of the price level of the goods and services in the economy that result in all these effects. And all these will only be reflected on the line itself. That means movement, okay, movement of the points. There's no shift here, only movement along the straight line. Now, on the other hand, we have non-price factors. So we talk about non-price factors, that means we're referring to the shift of AD curve. Okay, so that means there will be shift here. So again, you look into price level on your y-axis and real GDP on your x-axis, and you have your aggregate demand curve. Either it shift leftwards or rightwards. Like here, when it increase, it shift rightwards. Okay, if it decrease, it shift leftwards. Now, what are the factors? We look into the factors. What are the factors that will result in the shift of AD curve? Okay, you don't have to look into this. I just give you one shortcut. Now, in aggregate demand, right, you have four components, which are C, I, G, and X, right? Now, as long as any of these components increasing, let's say, for example, people having more income, they start to spend more, okay? People are optimistic with the economy, so they invest more. Government want to use some expansionary fiscal policy by injecting money to the economy. Okay, government start to spend more when government increasing, or more net exports in the country. all this, as long as it increase, this will cause the aggregate demand curve to shift rightwards. Okay, vice versa, if any of these components decreasing, then it will shift the aggregate demand curve leftwards. So my point is, when you look into non-price factors, as long as we are referring to any of these components, as long as these components are increasing or decreasing, okay, that means it will result in the shift of AD curve. So below here are just some examples. Like first one, I say changes in expectations. If households and firms are optimistic with the future economy, they start to spend more and invest more. So you see, they start to spend more and invest more is not because of the price level, but because of their expectations, their optimism. Okay, so therefore, that is what we call as non-price factors. Same thing, changes in government policies. Like for example, government use some expansionary fiscal or expansionary monetary policy that helps the economy. So there will be higher government spending. Again, government start to spend more. It's partly because of the policy, not because of the price level. So again, we call it as non-price factor. Okay, you will learn more about the policies when it comes to chapters at the back. Changes in the foreign variables, like for example, we look into exchange rate, which we'll learn it later on as well. At the back, okay, like for example, when the country's currency depreciates, that means it becomes weaker. So that means that it's cheaper for foreigners to buy our local currency. So what happens is when our local currency depreciates, that means our products will become cheaper as well. Okay, so therefore, the net exports will increase. So you see, today people will buy more of our products not because of the price level, but because of all these external factors. Okay, like this one is depreciation of the currency. That means it makes your currency cheaper. So therefore, your items will be more attractive to the foreigners and the locals to buy. So net exports increase and therefore it will shift the aggregate demand curve rightwards. Okay, so that's what we call as non-price factors here. Okay, now moving on to the next one is called aggregate supply. Okay, so same thing here. When we talk about aggregate supply curve, we look into total supply in the economy, and it can be divided into short run. Okay, it can be divided into short run and long run. Okay, so short run, that means that I'm referring to the time frame when money, wage rate, and other factor prices are constant. That means I assume my factor prices or wages, okay, are constant. But when I say long run aggregate supply, that means I'm referring to the time period when money, wages, and prices are highly flexible and adjust rapidly. That means workers can start to ask for higher wages if they overwork, for example. Okay, so remember, I want you to remember it as that long run aggregate supply, right? It is vertical. Why? Because it shows the potential GDP in the economy. Okay, so remember, long run aggregate supply you can think about as the potential GDP of the economy. That is your capacity. Your capacity. Okay, so it's a vertical line. Okay, it's a vertical line. Okay, and remember when I say long run is a time period when all the factor prices are flexible. They can ask for higher wages and the factor prices can adjust flexibly. So now, same thing, we are going to look into price factor and non-price factors. Okay, it's just that here we will have two lines. One is short run aggregate supply curve. The other one is long run aggregate supply curve. Okay, so let's have a look into the price factor first. So on the y-axis is price level, on the x-axis is real GDP, and this is the SAS curve, upward sloping. Okay, why is that so? Now let's say at first it's at point A here, at the price level of 115, and at the quantity of 12. At first it's like this. Okay, now let's say the price levels goes up. Okay, when the price level goes up to point B here, okay, let's say from 115 to 120, price level increase. What happened is the quantity of real GDP demanded will also increase. So therefore, the relationship is when the price level increase, quantity of real GDP supply will increase. Why is that so? Because of profit motive. Okay, so here is because of profit motive. That means that today when the price level becomes higher, producers in the economy, they want to produce more. So that result in higher quantity of real GDP supply. And this is caused by the price level itself, okay, because they want to make more profits. And they are able to do so is because the wages remain constant. Okay, so that means that today, if you are the producers, you see that, wow, today the items can be so more higher more in terms of the prices. Then you want to increase the supply. Okay, so you ask your workers to produce more, but you still paying them the same wages. Because why? Because wages remain constant. Okay, so like I say, short run, okay, because we are referring to short run, this is the short run aggregate supply. Short run. So when I say short run, that means that the wages remain constant. Wages remain constant, or we call it as sticky wages. Okay, in the short run, wages are constant. So this is why producers can take advantage of this by asking the workers to produce more, okay, when the price level increasing. Okay, so therefore, firms are often slow to adjust wages. Okay, we call it sticky wages, or wages remain constant. So this is why you are able to produce more when the price level increase, when the workers start to come to you and ask for higher wages. Okay. Now, on the other hand, we look into non-price factors. So we look into the shift of SAS curve. Okay, the shift of SRAS curve and the shift of long run aggregate supply curve. Okay, so remember few key terms. So what causes the shift of short run aggregate supply curve? As long as it has something to do with a change in factor prices. Change in factor prices here means cost of production. Okay, as long as it has something to do with a change in the cost of production, it will shift the SAS curve. Okay, so that means what causes SAS curve to shift is something to do with the cost of production. Like what? Like money, wages, okay, oil prices, prices of raw materials, prices of resources, subsidies, indirect taxes. Do you realize that all these will affect costs? All these affect costs. So this is why it will shift the SAS curve. Okay, remember, shift SAS curve only for this one. Okay, now what will shift the LS curve? Okay, so what shift the LS curve is, remember I said the LS curve is your potential GDP of the economy, your potential capacity, right? Okay, so when I use the word RIS, that means I'm referring to the potential capacity of the economy. So as long as there are some factors that result in the change in the potential GDP of the economy, it will shift the LS curve. Now remember one thing, whatever shift the LS will shift SAS as well. Okay? One thing, when LIS shift, okay, LAS or LIS shift, okay, so when LAS, okay, when LRAS, long run aggregate supply curve shift, SRAS curve will shift together as well. So you see, whatever happened to LRAS, okay, SRAS will shift as well. Okay, so what will cause a change in the potential capacity of the economy? Remember in the first tutorial, we did a quick mind map saying that there are few factors that can result in an increase in the quality of the resources, right? Something about that. Remember I talked about physical capital growth, human capital growth, and technological advancements. Again, you can use the same point. These are the three factors that can shift the LAS curve. Okay, so therefore you can see that physical capital growth, human capital growth, and technological advancements, okay, will have an impact on the SAS and LAS curve. Okay, physical capital growth means you are having more machinery, equipment, and technologies. Human capital growth means you have better quality of the workers, labor, and lastly, technological advancements. Okay. So remember, whatever shift SAS is only those related to the cost of production. Whatever shifting LAS is those physical capital growth, human capital growth, and technological advancements. Okay, so I remember I mentioned about these three factors last time when we learned about it, when we learned in tutorial 1, when we learned about what are the ways for us to achieve long-term economic growth, right? Okay. Okay, now let's have a look into tutorial questions. Question 1 here. Consumer confidence refers to the sentiment or perception that consumers have regarding the current and future state of the economy. Okay. It reflects consumers' overall outlook on the economic conditions, their personal finance situations, and their confidence in making purchase and investments. Due to the current situation of war in different parts of the economy, the consumer confidence in these countries is at all-time low. Considering of this, which of the components of the aggregate demand do you think will be affected, and how would it affect the aggregate demand? So here we're talking about low consumer confidence, okay, and that will affect aggregate demand. Okay, but which components of aggregate demand? Okay, so we can straight away go through these answers here. The first one is consumption. Okay, because having war, okay, so what happened is people are less optimistic with the economy's future prospects and their personal finance. So they will cut back on discretionary spending, okay, and postpone major purchases such as buying cars, appliances, and vacation. So this decrease in consumption expenditure directly reduce the overall demand for goods and services. Okay. So same thing for next one. Okay, it will affect investment as well because business are not there to simply invest. Okay, so low consumer confidence will affect investments because they are more pessimistic about the future. Business will become more cautious and delay or cancel investment projects. Okay, so they want to buy any new equipment, they don't want to expand, or they don't want to do any R&D. Okay, so therefore again, this will decrease the aggregate demand. Okay. Government spending may not be affected so much because here we focus on the consumer sentiments. So we look into households and also businesses. So yes, consumer consumption, investment will be affected. And the other one is net exports. Okay, so what happened is while consumers confidence primarily affects domestic consumption and investment, it can indirectly impact net export as well. Why? Low consumer confidence can lead to weaker domestic demand, okay, which may result in decreased demand for imports. Okay. However, if consumer confidence declines significantly, it can also lead to reduced export demand as well, as foreign consumers may also become more cautious about spending. Okay, so that means that net exports will also fall, mainly because people will not buy their country's exports as well, because foreign consumers will be cautious about spending. Okay, so the main thing over here, we are referring to the net exports will be falling down. Okay, less exports. Okay, so overall, it will decrease consumption, investments, and net exports. Therefore, this will shift the AD curve leftwards. So like I say, because this one all here, it reduce consumption, reduce investment, reduce net exports. All these are components of aggregate demand curve. So it shift the aggregate demand curve leftwards. By the way, right, I said that one sentence here a bit weird because this is from her answers. I think this is increase. I believe this is increase. So that means I feel that when you talk about net exports, right? Let me write here. Net exports falling down, right? So net exports referring to exports minus imports. So I believe it's like exports going down and imports going up. I believe it's something like that. Okay, so I think she used the wrong word here, I believe. Yeah. So you see weaker domestic demand, yes, exports going down, and also foreign consumers will not buy. So exports going down and various imports going up. But anyway, at the end is falling down the next exports. Okay, the net exports falling down. Yeah, I believe she used the word strongly here. As long as I see your net exports going down, if it's only one error here, that's fine. At least you still know that net exports going down, ma. The net export must go down. It's correct. It's just that this term, I think this term she used wrongly. Yeah. Use increase. I think increase is more appropriate. Okay, let's have a look into question 2. When price level drop, why is there a downward movement along the aggregate demand curve? So this is about the price factor. Okay, so this is about the price factor. Okay, so when price level fall, okay, the quantity of real GDP demanded will increase. Okay, for this one, what you need to focus on is how do you explain. Okay, you need to explain the inverse relationship of this downward sloping aggregate demand curve. How do you explain this one? You use the two effects, the wealth effects and substitution effects. Okay, so how do you explain this one? Like what we have said just now. Okay, you scroll down a bit first. This one I want to show you because you will need this for assignments. I purposely put this one additional reading here is for assignments. Okay, so you can mirror the answers when you write in your analysis, your diagram analysis. Okay, so this one is about price level going down, right? You modify your, because here I say a rise in price level. Okay, so you can see here, this is for me to explain the wealth effect. Okay, but here we talk about a rise in price level. Okay, that means you need to change because in that question true, we are saying that the price level falling down. Okay, so that means like for example here, you change a fall in the price level, okay, increases the purchasing power, and that result in a rise in the real wealth. So people will save less and spend more, okay, causing a rise in the quantity of real GDP demanded. Okay, so you just need to play around with the terms. The template is already like this. Makes your life so easy. You just need to change the words when it comes to your own assignments analysis. Okay, so it depends on which direction that you go for. Okay, same thing. Let's say we talk about intertemporal effect. Intertemporal means interest rate. So, like for example, here the question show just now we are talking about price level go down, right? Okay, so lower price level indicates less money needed to buy goods and services, which lead to a fall in the interest rate. Okay, due to the rise in the value of money. Currently, this reduces cost of borrowing, increases the quantity of real GDP demanded. See, reverse only. Why you look so confused? Right, just reverse only, right? Oh, okay. The other one is international substitution effects. Okay, so same thing in the question two, we are talking about the falling price level, right? So same thing, if that's what you want to write in your assignments, you change your lower price level, okay, makes the local goods cheaper, okay, and attractive to the locals and foreigners. Locals will buy the local goods with locals will buy local goods, okay? Locals and foreigners will buy local goods and increasing the quantity of real GDP demanded. So anyway, for this one, I'm just showing you if let's say you want to change the direction, you can just change the words. Okay, for you to explain the three wealth and substitution effects. How do you explain the price factor for supply curve? I have put it here for you as well. If you were to talk about the supply curve, okay, let's say, just now we didn't go talk about this just now. So let's say we talk about an increase in price level. Okay, let's say when there's an increase in price level, what happened is it will lead to increase in the quantity of real GDP supply along the SAS curve. Why? Because high price level creates an incentive effect for the producers to produce more due to profit motive, while money wages remain constant in the short run. Okay. So same thing, if today, if it's a fall in the price level, you change a fall in the price level lead to a fall in the quantity of real GDP supply because lower prices creates a disincentive effect. Okay, disincentive effect for the producers to produce less due to profit motive while money wages remain constant. Again, just change the words. Okay, this one can understand, can make sure you read that. Okay, now something that I want to emphasize. Okay, so let's talk about short run and long run. Okay. Okay, so let's have a look into this one. This is the origin. This is the price level. This is the quantity of real GDP. Okay. This is your aggregate demand curve. Okay. This is your SAS curve. And now, let's say I want to assume, okay, let's say I assume that we start from full employment. Okay, let's say we assume, okay, assuming starts from full employment. Okay, so how you draw full employment? That means like this. SAS and SRAS are the same. Sometimes I use SAS, sometimes I use SRAS. It's the same thing. Short run aggregate supply curve. Okay, same thing. Long run aggregate supply curve, I can write LAS or LRAS. It's the same thing. Okay. Okay, that's my point. Initial at point A here. At this price level, let's say 100, okay? And at this quantity of real GDP, let's say 10 billion. Okay, let's say in billions. Okay. Now remember, when they ask you to draw this kind of graph, you must see properly where it starts from. Let's say here I start from full employment. Okay. If I say assuming start from inflationary gap, how you draw this one? So if I will continue this one later on in the while. Let's say now I say starting from inflationary gap. So how? Y-axis, x-axis, origin, price level, quantity of real GDP, aggregate demand curve, SAS curve, okay? And your LS curve is here. Why? Because you are having inflationary gap. That means you see your point A is here. Your point A is beyond the capacity of the economy. Do you realize that? So point A here, at this price level of 100, you are operating beyond the full capacity. LAS here means potential GDP, your full capacity. So full capacity is, let's say, for example, in the billion, is 10 billion, but you're producing up to 13. So this gap over here is inflationary gap. Okay, you are producing beyond the full capacity. So important, in exam, if you start from the wrong point, the whole thing will be gone. So if I ask you to start from recessionary gap, how to draw? Same thing, y-axis, x-axis, origin, price level. So I repeat, if you start from a wrong point, the whole thing gone. Same for assignments. Okay, so quantity of real GDP. Okay, now same thing, you have aggregate demand curve, SAS curve. So how's your recessionary gap looks like? Like this, you're producing below the full capacity. You can produce up to 10 billion, but you only producing, the economy only producing up to point A here, which is 8 billion at the price level of 100. So therefore, you can see one thing here, there is a recessionary gap here. That's called recessionary gap. So keywords, inflationary gap means you are producing beyond the full capacity. Beyond full capacity. That means my output is larger than the full employment. My output is here, my full employment is here. So the Y here is larger than YF. Y larger than YF. Okay? So vice versa, when I say recessionary gap, that means below full capacity. That means what? Your output is below the full employment. Your full employment is here, but the output is here, which is lower. Okay? So you can see output is lower than full employment. So one more time, I repeat, do not start your point strongly. YF means full employment. F means full employment. So full employment refers to our full capacity. We assume that we have that's our full potential of the economy. Okay, so wait for a while, then we move on. Okay, let's continue just now for this one. Okay, you see now, let's say now we start assume full employment. Okay, assume full employment. Okay, now, so this is the full employment, YF. Okay. Okay, now let's say I want to talk about a shift in aggregate demand curve. Let's say higher consumption, higher government spending, that result in the shift of aggregate demand curve. Okay, so what happened is my aggregate demand curve will shift rightwards. Okay, AD curve shift rightwards. Okay, so you can see from point A, it moved to here. Okay, so there's a shortage. Shortage will push up the prices to new equilibrium here, point B. Okay, but from A to A1 here, okay, then move to point B because A1 is not the equilibrium yet. Okay, so it moved to point B. So here, at the end, it results in higher price level and higher quantity of real GDP demanded, let's say 13. Okay, so at the end, you realize one gap here. What gap is this? Can someone tell me what gap is this? Inflationary gap. Okay. That's how you analyze in your assignment as well, inflationary gap. Okay. Now you need to look into this one over here to explain the direction. Okay, you see, from A1 here to B here, there's the movement along the straight line, right? Correct or not? So you see from point A1 to point B here means what? Here you can see that price level goes up. So quantity of real GDP demanded will fall, right? Because this is aggregate demand. Okay, so when you look into this one, how do you explain this relationship? What are the two effects that you use? Substitute and wealth effect. Okay, so you need to explain the movement here, this one. Okay, so same thing here. When you look into point A to point B, it's supply curve, right? SAS curve. So you need to refer to the incentive effect. Higher price level result in higher quantity of real GDP supply. Then only it result at the new equilibrium at point B. So I'm talking about the details that you need to explain when you want to analyze your diagram in your assignments. Okay? Or even in your exam. So now you understand that you can see the effects from a graph here. From point A to point B here, you can see that there are the effects that you can mention. Okay, now you see, in this scenario, what is the outcome? The outcome is having inflationary gap, right? Okay, that means what? That means the output is producing beyond the full employment. Okay, beyond full capacity of the economy. So in this case, okay, what will happen? So just now we look into short run. Now we look into long run. So what happened is, in the long run, right, people overwork already beyond full capacity. You ask your workers to overwork already. So what happened is workers will start to ask for higher wages. Okay. In the short run, wages remain constant. Remember just now we made an assumption. So now in the long run, wages or factor prices are flexible. Okay. So workers overwork and will ask for higher wages. Okay, they overwork. So they will ask for higher wages. Okay, so therefore, when wages becomes higher, it increases your cost, right? When cost increase, which line or which graph will it be shifted? Something to do with the cost. Which graph will it be shifted? L or S? No, it will not shift L because it's something to do with cost. You look back to our notes, something to do with cost. Short run, yes, correct. Okay, so short run aggregate supply curve will shift leftwards. Okay. So in the long run, what happened is the economy, right, will shift back to full employment, as in how? So you see the red color line, okay, it will shift back to full employment. Okay, so just now at first is shift the AD curve in the short run and it result in inflationary gap. So in the long run, people overwork, they will start to ask for higher wages. and that increase the cost, that will shift the SAS curve leftwards. So from point B here, move leftwards, okay? And then the new equilibrium point is here, point C. Okay, so again, it results in higher price level, but back to full employment. Higher price level, but back to full employment. Okay, so here I'm just showing you short run and long run impacts. You will not be using so much on the long run impacts for now first, but you will use that later on when it comes to chapters at the back. But now I'm showing you that that's how short run and long run works. So that means that in the long run, usually it will always shift back to full employment. Okay, let's have a look into this one. Okay, so here I provide you one extra question here. Assume that an economy is at full employment. Use ADS diagram and explain what happens in the short run. Okay, in the short run, as a result of a rise in investment and how it affects the real GDP and the price level. Okay, so I give you a tips on what you need to write. Okay, why is that this is important? Because in your assignment, you get to choose either you want to analyze using ADAS or Keynesian, right? Keynesian, you haven't learned it yet. You only learn ADAS for now. So I provide you the templates here for the diagram analysis part. Okay, for the diagram analysis part, you can mirror this one. Okay, so this is the graph, same as what you have just drawn. Okay, and this is how you explain. You see how I explain, very details. I start with the initial point. I explain the initial situation, initial point in the first paragraph, then followed by the explanation of the real wealth effect, intertemporal effect, international effects, and also the profit incentive effect. And then most importantly, when you write, you must have this last paragraph to say that what is the final outcomes, what is the final price level, final real GDP, and whether there is inflationary gap or recessionary gap. Okay, so the final outcome is important when you were to analyze. Okay, question 3, true or false? The short run aggregate supply curve is vertical, indicating that changes in the price level do not affect the quantity of the real GDP supply in the short run. Okay, so apparently this is wrong, because SRAS curve is not vertical. Only the LRAS curve is vertical. Okay, so SRAS curve is upward sloping. Okay, it's upward sloping in the short run. Okay, they mean, and this is only caused by the change in the factor prices. Okay, so this means that changes in the price level can lead to changes in the quantity of real GDP supply. In the short run, firms may adjust their production levels in response to changes in prices, inputs costs, and demand conditions. Okay, question number 2. a decrease in the input prices will shift the SRAS curve to the right. Correct or not? So a decrease in the input prices, your factors of production, the prices of the factors, will shift the SAS curve to the right. So you see, because we say that cost becomes lower, okay, cost becomes lower. So what happened is SRAS curve will shift rightwards. So cost becomes lower now, you produce more. You produce more means shift right. Okay, you produce more, shift right. Okay, so therefore the answer is correct. Okay, because it reduced the production costs for firms because they can produce more at every price level. Okay, so that result in an increase in quantity of real GDP supply. Okay, shift to the right. Okay, next one, technological advancements can shift both short run and long run aggregate supply curve to the right. Is it correct? So technological advancements, it will increase the capacity of the economy. So yes, it will shift the LS curve to the right. So whatever shift LS, it will shift SAS as well. So SAS curve will shift to the right as well. Okay, so that's my explanation here. So remember, it increased the potential output in the long run. So whatever change the potential output, it will also affect the SAS curve. Like for example, because it lower the cost, because you are more efficient, so can increase the quantity of real GDP supply. Okay, question 4. How does the following factors impact short-run aggregate supply and long-run aggregate supply? Question number 1. The natural disasters and geographical events such as war. So how? Do you think it will shift SAS or LS or both? We have provided answers there already. So, natural disasters, let's say war or like some events that happen towards the whole country. So that reduce the quantity and the quality of the resources, right? Okay, so you will have less resources or less physical capital. So it affects the entire capacity of the economy. So what happened is it will affect LAS. Okay, so for this one, if it affects the whole country, what happened is it will affect the LAS curve shift leftwards. Whatever shift LAS will shift SAS as well, so it also shift leftwards. Okay, so therefore you can see that the explanation here, this one and this one. Okay, so you can see the LAS curve will shift to the left, okay, because of the permanent decrease in the resources. Okay, so that reduce the potential GDP of the economy. Okay, whereas for SRAS, it will shift to the left as well. Okay, because LAS has shifted. Okay, because all this will affect the production capabilities and the input availability. Okay, so all these kind of shocks, okay, will cause deviation in the production level. Okay, next question. Seasonal labor migration. Okay, so seasonal only. Okay, so seasonal labor migration. So here, RAS remain unaffected unless this seasonal labor migration leads to a permanent pattern, because it's only seasonal, temporarily anyway. Okay, so what happened is seasonal will only shift the SRAS curve. Okay, so you can see that it will lead to an increase in the short run aggregate supply in region experiencing the migration. Okay, so when seasonal workers migrate to areas with labor shortages during the specific periods, okay, they contribute to increased production capacity and labor supply in the short run. So the influx of labor can result in higher level of outputs during the season. Okay, last question here. Government investing in skill development programs in the country. Skill development programs. Which graph that you think it will be shifted? Yes, correct. Because when you look into skill development training program, it's about training and education. So therefore, that will shift the LAS curve and also the SAS curve. Okay, so that's the explanation here.